It's ban list time, but instead of doing an entire prediction list of which cards I think will be banned and which cards will be released from their prison, I'm going to simply focus on some cards I feel should be banned but probably will not be, especially since the OCG list was not changed at all. So with that, let's get started. The first card I think that should be banned is Necroz of Trishula. Not surprisingly, almost every player has an opinion regarding how to address the dominance of Necroz. A number of suggestions read like a hit list. Ban Brio, limit Unicorn, limit Cycle, limit Mirror, ban Releaser, etc., etc. Such suggestions miss the point of the issue involving Necroz. The goal is to eliminate its dominance, not kill the deck completely. The problem with Necroz is that at almost every major tournament, you see results where 8 of the top 16 decks are Necroz, and 18 of the top 32 decks are Necroz. The goal should be reducing those statistics to 4 of the top 16 decks are Necroz, and 12 of the top 32 decks are Necroz, not 0 of the top 16 decks are Necroz. Banning Trishula should achieve this ideal. To those who question this logic, think of this on two separate issues. First, when players duel against Necroz, what card is most played around? It's not Unicorn, it's not Brio, it's not Colossalus, it's Trishula. There are a number of players that side cards like Trap Tricks, Trap Hole Nightmare, and Mirror of the Ice Barrier solely to counter Trishula. Realistically, Trishula is the card that opponents fear when they play against Necroz, because they appreciate its potential. Second, a number of players think the key to dealing with Necroz is to kill their consistency. While consistency is important, it is also irrelevant if nothing comes of it. For example, I would argue that Raid Raptors are a more consistent deck than Necroz, but Raptors don't produce anywhere near the same level of tournament in the OCG or online success as Necroz. Why? Because Raid Raptors have less of an endgame for their consistency. Instead, they basically play like a Heraldic or a Clownblade deck relying on their XZ plays. They don't have that consistent key boss monster card with an extremely powerful effect like Trishula. A card like Revolutionary Falcon is hardly consistent, and its effect is rather secondary compared to something like Trishula. Therefore, the issue is not necessarily dealing with the consistency. The issue is dealing with what that consistency can do to help the deck win. And what makes the consistency most meaningful in Necroz is Trishula. Overall, banning Trishula does exactly what needs to be done. It doesn't kill Necroz as a deck, but it significantly limits its ability to dominate. The second card I think that should be banned is Royal Magical Library. Banning library is rather self-explanatory. It's the centerpiece to a lot of FTK, OTK decks in the game. A card like Butterfly Dagger Elma was banned and remains banned because it was the key card for one type of OTK-FTK loop. Library is the key card for at least 5 that I can think of just now off the top of my head. Exodia, Fire Princess, Ignites, Tempest Magician, and Chicken Race, which anyone who plays online, all these Chicken Race, OTK, FTKs, they're just absolutely ridiculous and do nothing to help the game. So explain that logic. Elma is a garbage card that governs one somewhat inconsistent OTK loop, and it's banned, whereas Library is a decent card on its own that governs 5 decent OTK loops, and it's at 3. The third card I think that should be banned is Soul Charge. Some people would argue that Soul Charge is not a problem because it's not run in a number of the top decks. The lack of Soul Charge should be more attributed to the types of decks that are at the top at the moment, or maybe just questionable deck construction, rather than the lack of usefulness and or power of this card. Every good Yu-Gi-Oh player would agree that one of the keys to winning consistently is to limit the impact of luck. A chief strategy to achieving this goal is to maximize versatility. Soul Charge does exactly that, with its ability to consistently summon multiple targets from the graveyard without any real restrictions. The loss of a few life points or the next battle phase is a trivial cost to having the ability to place an effect monster with an alive effect, a synchro monster, almost any XZ monster to manage the situation at hand. Do I really care about losing my battle phase when I can go into something like Pallades or Hot Red Dragon Archfiend or set up a play for Tellarknight Trever or even something as simple as put a few Castels on the field and spin back 2 cards? Soul Charge produces a greater level of versatility and advantage over 99% of the cards in the game, and definitely a lot more than a number of other cards that are currently banned. For example, does anyone really think that Soul Charge is inferior in a general deck construction to Premature Burial, Dimension Fusion, or Monster Reborn? Both Premature Burial and Monster Reborn only get 1 monster from the graveyard. You can't do a lot with just 1 monster. You can use your normal summon and try to make a play, but you're still pretty limited. Dimension Fusion only works well in a very limited number of specific deck constructs, not in general constructs like where Soul Charge still works very effectively. The simple fact is, Soul Charge is still one of the most powerful cards in the game at changing the entire momentum of the game, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, and cards like that are typically banned. For my final card, if you ask me what card I would ban above all others, it would be Evil Swarm Exciton Knight. I could go on for a long while about how negative this card is for the game as a whole, but I'll spare you the full diatribe, and I'll keep it brief. This card is a fantastic example of what not to do if you want a vibrant, dynamic, and creative deck-building environment. Some may argue that Exciton exists to punish players for overextending. While Exciton can punish players for overextending, such a benefit is completely mitigated by its negative impact on the game. In reality, what Exciton does is it punishes players for outplaying their opponent. Player A could outplay Player B for 4 to 5 turns, producing significant field advantage, and then Player B could eliminate all of it by just dropping Exciton. Then to pour salt on the wound even further, Player B now has a 1900 attack point monster that, given the right circumstances, which are coin flip chance that they can just clear the field again if you try to destroy it by way of battle. In addition, Exciton kneecaps the ability to play any type of deck that relies on a meaningful level of field control to win, like Arrow Mages or Crystal Beasts. Some would argue all you have to do is negate its effect. It's not a big deal. The point that Exciton can be neutralized by simple effect negation is irrelevant, because if that's going to be your argument, then why ban any monster in the game? All you need to do? Devote 15 to 25% of your deck to negation. Every monster's cool. Just because there's a counter doesn't mean the card is balanced. Also, similar to Soul Charge, the point that Exciton is not consistently seen in the top decks does little to argue against banning it. Almost all of the top decks run Exciton, but they just rarely have to use it because of their deck's ability to produce advantage. They're frequently winning. Exciton's a big comeback card. It's not a I'm kicking your butt card. This advantage production may lead some to ask, well, isn't Exciton good? Because it gives all these slower decks a chance to fight back against the modern, fast, advantage-producing decks? The problem with that is the answer is no. Exciton actually helps the faster decks because they have a better opportunity to make Exciton, and even if they get hit by Exciton, they have a better probability of recovering from it. In reality, Exciton is just another weapon that favors the faster, more modern decks over the slower, grindy field control decks. Overall, regardless of any argument one can think of to attempt to justify Exciton's inclusion in this game, there's one issue that can't be ignored. The idea of the ban list is to maximize the importance of skill and minimize the importance of luck by eliminating the cards in the game that produce the most significant or unfair advantage in a generic manner. One fact that cannot be disputed is that players should not be punished for outplaying their opponent, and Exciton does exactly that at the most extreme level. The single best thing that can be done for the creativity and the near future of the game is banning Exciton Knight. And realistically, it's also the best thing that can be done to line the pocketbooks of a certain company that runs the game. Hey, you want to bring back all those decks that Exciton kills? Well, you'll create a small primary market, and you also create a vibrant secondary market, once Exciton's gone. So, make the game more fair and make more money. Gee, it seems like banning Exciton is definitely the thing that should be done. Now, why did I select 4 instead of 5 or 10 or a more standard round number? The simple fact is, I only think that at the current time there are 4 non-obvious cards that should be banned. Some may question that why I didn't suggest banning something like Jin the Releaser. Well, look at the title. A large number of people are already calling for that card's head, and there exists a decent probability that it will be banned in the TCG, so it doesn't fit the theme of the list. Others may wonder why no mention of El Shaddai Construct. First, Construct is banned in the OCG, and it could follow suit in the TCG. However, I think banning Construct is an unjustified overreaction. Lowering Construct to 1 is fine, but banning it makes little sense, because for some reason people seem to think the Construct has Winda's anti-destruction effect. Overall, at its core, Construct is really just a 2800 protectionless beater. Its special summon destruction effect is only really useful in a small number of scenarios when its attack power is unable to do the job, and Shikanaga is a better defensive card, so banning Construct is just one of those really overreaction type things. So there it is. Those are the 4 cards that I think should be banned if the powers that be really care about the health of the game, but probably won't be. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.